Yes, my friends, welcome back. Three massive stories to break down today. We have more updates around Kai Havertz and Real Madrid. And for the two breaking stories today, we look at Gabriel Veiga as the potential replacement for Kai Havertz. And to end things, we talk Neymar because reports in France suggest that we are opening official negotiations to sign Neymar in this summer window. Wow. Things are getting absolutely mad. I don't want to waste any more time because there's a lot to discuss. So if you like today's video, if you want to see Neymar here, hit that like button. Let's try and get over 3k likes. It's been a long time since I've seen that number. And most importantly, my friends, share your thoughts and opinions below too. So without wasting any more time. So right now, let's discuss these latest updates around Kai Havertz. And currently, as we already know, Kai has 2 years left on his existing deal, and based on the latest reports, it states that if Kai does not extend his contract with us, then naturally we're forced to have to sell him. Now the cynical part of me feels like this is like a little bit of a PR spin to ease the exit of Kai Havertz, because even though some people aren't a fan of him, a lot of the fan base actually still like Kai, so I guess this makes his exit a bit easier to take. But regardless, I was hearing a few things before suggesting that there was a possibility that Kai could extend his contract with us. But right now, it does seem like Havertz has grown a bit disillusioned with life at the football club, and he is very open now to a new environment, a fresh start. So I think Real Madrid makes quite a lot of sense. But based on the current reports, it does seem like the price tag for Kai has actually increased. And right now, we want around £75 million to allow Kai Havertz to leave. But in my opinion, that's going to involve things like a good base fee plus very good bonuses over time. Now it's interesting because Pochettino is looking for that deep-lying forward profile. And to be fair, Havertz has played there a few times, he looks okay, but there's been no proper system to really take advantage of that. And ironically, I think Pochettino could have done something with Havertz, but at the same time, there's been no concrete report suggesting that Pochettino really wants to work with Havertz for next season. And right now, other than new signings we've made, it seems like all the older players at the club that have been here for more than 12 months, all of these guys could be sold for the right offer. I'm accepting Kai is going to be sold this summer. I guess my only frustration is going to be this year. We never saw him harness his potential. We never unlocked that. So that is the Havertz update out the way. How do you feel? And this segues in very nicely to one of the breaking reports of this afternoon. And we discussed Gabriel Veiga of Celta Vigo. Now I'd imagine that some of you guys are very unfamiliar with this player, his game, his team, etc, etc. But this is why you guys watch my videos. Like, I got you. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down for you. But before I do that, let's discuss the latest reports first. If, or more realistically, when Kai Havertz does get sold, we are looking for a replacement for him, and that replacement currently is seen as Gabriel Veiga of Celta Vigo. Now he's 21 years old, Spanish international, I think like 6 foot, 6'1", left-footed, and he plays in midfield. He plays as an attacking mid, and actually during his youth days for Celta Vigo, he was playing as a striker, and this last season was officially his first breakthrough season, where he played consistently throughout. And during that season, he picked up 11 goals and 4 assists in 35, 36 appearances, which is a very decent return for your first proper season. And right now, we all understand that Newcastle, a few other Prem clubs like Liverpool, etc, etc, are all casting their attentions on Gabriel Veiga, and that's because he has a very affordable release clause set at around 40 million euros. And that converts to around £34.4 million. So I guess with Kai Havertz set to be leaving us, we do need a replacement. And why replace Havertz with one of the incredible young midfield players that we spent in total of nearly £60 million on, in the forms of Casade or Carnes or Andre Santos? Why use those guys? Why not sign another young midfield player instead? I know I'm sounding a bit cynical, but I couldn't help it, you guys. Anyway, let me break down his game so you guys get a better understanding behind what he does and why we're showing interest to begin with. Now, I felt like Gabri ended the season quite well. He got 2 goals against Barcelona in the final game of the season against them. Now, to be honest with you, I felt like the final goal he scored against Barca, when he sealed his brace, was an absolute fluke. It was meant to be a back post cross. Instead, the ball finds itself in the back of the net. But I guess that reflects the fortune that Gabriel Veiga picked up throughout the season. And to be fair with you, I feel like his season didn't really pick up until Celta Vigo replaced and sacked their old manager in Coudet and replaced him with ex-Swansea manager in Carlos Carvalhal. And Carlos Carvalhal is a very important detail to take notice of because he revamped how Celta Vigo played. That's because when he became their manager, they became more of like a 4-4-2 type of team or a 5-2-3 type of team where Veiga was playing in a midfield too. And I'm going to explain some of Carvalhal's like coaching philosophies and principles, because if you were to like go to the stats to see Gabriel Veiga's performances, they don't reveal too much. For example, yes, nice shooting stats, nice carrying stats, but in terms of passing, it's far below the regions you'd expect them to be at. But there's obviously a reason behind why, and it's based on how Celta Vigo actually play under Carvalhal. Now, I'm not going to get into tactical. I'm going to give you guys like a very brief understanding, but basically see it like this, like a balanced type of team. You know, they like to emphasize on using vertical balls and long balls, especially playing them to their physical strikers in Seferovic or Larson. They got the fullbacks that like to keep and hold the width, and there's a lot of emphasis on like verticality. For example, let's say you're a wide midfield player. You might invert in midfield, of course, to take out an opposition defender, and that frees up space for maybe the fullback or a midfield player to run into and attack that space. And naturally, if you're playing this type of way, this is going to complement Gabriel Veiga's game. With how Celta Vigo attack, there's a lot of emphasis behind movement and attacking the spaces from like the strikers and the mids behind them. And if I was to give you guys a comparison, I would compare him to like 19-20 season Mason Mount, where they kind of played a similar role in the sense that Mount wasn't really known for his like build-up play. He was more about creating space for his teammates. He was more about attacking the spaces inside the box, you know, running off the ball, that type of thing. And I feel like Gabriel Veiga's shown a lot of those same qualities for Celta Vigo this season. In terms of his game, you know, he's left-footed. I feel like he has very good shooting technique. He loves to carry the ball. I wouldn't say it's like elite level, but if there's space, he has that confidence to carry it forward and attack it. I think he presses well, even though his like defensive IQ isn't amazing. He's aggressive, he loves a 1v1 tackle, and I think he's pretty decent aerially. So like I said, at 21 years old now, to get double digits for goals in La Liga in your first proper season, you know, that is something that you can't ignore. That is really impressive. And it is no surprise that top clubs are keeping their eyes on him. And his game is very malleable. You know, he could become like an amazing 8-star midfield player. He could be like more of an attacking mids. But I guess if your game plan tactically is to rely upon breakaways from your players, then Gabriel Veiga is a decent prospect. But at the same time for me, yeah, how many young players of this age group can we continue to monitor and sign? I feel like it's too much right now. Like, what is the point of having Chukwuemeka and Kaside and Santos, you know, especially those two have scored a lot of goals in the current Under-20 World Cup. Is this not an opportunity to give these guys game time considering the money and wages they're currently earning? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not like Veiga's played more than 100 games across his career. Like, he's still relatively new to the game. And there's some confusion for my part, because if you're allowing Havertz to leave, do you necessarily need a profile like that to replace him? Would you not just sign a striker instead, or maybe another attacking winger? So I'm not quite too sure. Still, let's watch this space. Who knows if like more players end up leaving us this summer, and that forces us to have to sign replacements for them. I mean, time's gonna tell. But for me, to end things, it feels like we currently have a lot of profiles that can do the same thing, and should we not just keep them instead? You know, Mounts, Chukwuemeka, flipping Sand. I can go on. But to end things, like, do we not have similar profiles like this already? Why not invest game time into them and watch them progress? Because since Gabriel Veiga got belief from one manager, look at the difference that makes fundamentally. That is how you get players fulfilling their potential, and this is what we have to do with the guys that we actually own. So they're my thoughts and opinions. Let's now move on to another breaking story today. And right now we have another breaking story to discuss. Reports from France from Le 10 suggest that we have officially opened negotiations now over a move to sign Neymar from Paris Saint-Germain. Wow. Now, I like to make this point, I'm going to say it again. even though we've been having like beef with Paris Saint-Germain, fundamentally, clubs at this level who own players like Neymar, etc., this means that there's only a handful of clubs across the world that could afford to sign them. Because of that, you must keep good business relations. Of course, both clubs are extremely competitive. I mean, we saw that recently over Manuel Lagase. But in the long term, we need to keep these relationships because ideally, if we're selling someone, one of the big clubs could sign them from us, and that's how the money stays and keeps circulating across the big clubs. Anyway, we go back to these reports from France, and it states that we have positioned ourselves to make a move to sign Neymar in this window. We've opened up contact over the possibility to sign him, and Paris Saint-Germain are more than happy to negotiate. Now obviously, since they hired Luis Campos, one of the best sporting directors across the world, we can't forget how he transformed AS Monaco, Lille, helping both clubs secure, league and championship titles. Since he's been hired, he wants to make Paris Saint-Germain a lot more responsible. Recently we've seen Ramos leave them, Messi leave them, and he wants to build a more united Paris Saint-Germain team. And when it comes to squad building, Luis Campos is one of the best. So right now, they have to get Neymar off their wage bill, and currently they're seeing Bernardo Silva of Man City as that replacement for Neymar. I'd probably say no. It has been circulating for over nearly 2 years that we have been holding these discussions over the availability of Neymar in the future. We know from last year that Todd Boehly has been holding talks with Paris Saint-Germain now quite a few times. And originally, when Boehly and Co. and Clear Lake bought this football club, they wanted to have one global superstar that could be signed that could give us tons of marketing and business opportunities to help generate us more money as a football club. And that's one thing that Neymar definitely does. He's one of the most marketable football players across the world. But even though we understand the business sense, from a sporting sense, does this make sense? Is Neymar not just a more expensive Joao Felix? It's a bit cynical to see it like that. But to be fair with you, I've always felt like the negativity that Neymar gets in this country doesn't really make too much sense. I feel like people's opinions are purely based on the fact that they watch maybe 1 or 2 games with Neymar and knockout round football in the Champions League, and they completely dismiss everything else he does. Now, even though last season wasn't necessarily his best, in 32 games he got 20 goals and he got 14 assists. These are still elite numbers because Neymar is still an elite level player. I would say that as he's getting older, he is transitioning into being more like a playmaker style player. But to be fair with you, we do need those types of profiles in this team. And to be honest, I'm kind of picturing Neymar and Nkunku together in the same team. I feel like for great players like that, they need to play alongside other great players. Sometimes you can't just coach players on what to do here and there. These guys have to also figure out themselves when it needs to be done. And I feel like Nkunku and Neymar is just a very complementary attack to have. Now, it's an interesting one. Obviously, if Neymar was signed hypothetically, he would be playing down the left-hand side, and that could maybe benefit someone like Mudryk, where he's out the spotlight a bit. He has competition from Neymar, he gets to learn from Neymar, and he also gets tons of minutes to replace him off the sub bench and get game times here and there. That could be the thing to do. Neymar, the best way to use him is to create that freedom for him, because he's a guy that likes to drift and roam in the final thirds. He might start on the left-hand side, but he's drifting infield. He's playing in behind the strikers. And in terms of those through balls and behind and creativity, he's still one of the best in the world. That's an absolute fact. I would say this though, I do feel like if you were to have a Neymar, you kind of need to have a very pacey, fast fullback alongside him. And I don't think Cucurella or Ben are necessarily those types of fullbacks. So that's one thing to think about from a tactical perspective. But on top of that, for me, the most concerning thing around Neymar, it's not his personality, it's not his sister's birthdays or nothing like that. The reality is it's his injuries. And these injuries don't come from Neymar not looking after himself. Neymar has been a top class professional since he was a teenager. He's been built up to be this global superstar. He's not a normal player. Since a teenager, since a kid, he's been getting records, contracts with Nike and everyone else is really nasty tackles. All the injuries he gets are from contact injuries. Like, I remember that disgusting tackle against him from Zuniga, where I've never seen a player in my entire life challenge for an aerial ball with his knee up. Now, you can't even see it, but his knee was up when he was like coming against him. For me, he was clearly trying to hurt him, because no player does that. I've never seen that before. And stuff like that kind of sums up his career, you know, little ankle breaks or toe breaks or, you know, damage to his ligaments, etc, etc. He takes a lot of damage playing the way he does. And for the money and price that comes with Neymar, is that the best use of our funds? That is my only concern here. Because realistically, if he signed for us next season, expect him to have injuries. Like, he will get injured. That's what happens. But it's a weird one because Neymar is Neymar. And Paris Saint-Germain know that they won't be getting 100 million for him. Realistically, it could be like a loan style deal where you're paying like a high loan fee, you're covering his wages, or maybe Paris Saint-Germain are subsidizing a lot of his wages. I feel like if Neymar does move, Paris Saint-Germain are like footing some of the costs as well too. So it's definitely one thing to think about. But all I want to say is that if we continue to really pursue Neymar, he is not this footballing flop in the making. He's not an idiot. He's not this dead player or any of the nonsense that I hear about him in this country, to be fair with you. He can most definitely work in Pochettino's system. He played very well under Pochettino at Paris Saint-Germain. So this is a player that has the experience that Pochettino was asking for. And he's a global superstar that we haven't really seen at this football club and in the Premier League. So, wow, a lot of things are happening right now. This window has been so chaotic in terms of like links and players who can be sold and new signings and all of this stuff is very mad. And like it's taken me longer to release these videos because every time I'm finishing, there's like 2 other stories that's breaking. So right now, my friends, these are the 3 main stories. There is going to be another video coming out because there's even more stuff to discuss. So as I keep saying, make sure you have those bell notification buttons set on BlueLionsTV so I can keep you up to date with all the latest news that's dropping around this football club. So my friends, thank you for watching. Share your thoughts and opinions. I'm Nini FC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos.